Hey everyone, Michael O'Brien here, and today we're going to be discussing table hopping etiquette. Hello my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Advice for Magicians, where my job is to make you the best possible entertainers that you can be. Now, for our first ever mob family meeting, we did a discussion on table hopping etiquette, the do's and do nots when it comes to doing walk-around magic for guests that are sat at a table, whether they're eating dinner, they're at a restaurant, or they are at some kind of formal banquet or wedding reception or something. Guests that are sat at a table and that they're eating at the table, right? We did a whole hour-long discussion, Q&A session where I broke this down. I walked through exactly how I do this, step by step, blah, 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 right? In this video, I wanted to do a very abridged, sort of the Cliff Notes version of the things that we talked about. I'm just gonna hit the highlights of the things that we discussed in that video. I highly recommend you guys go back and watch that full hour-long discussion if this is something that interests you, because there was a lot of really good questions asked in there, and there was a lot of really good information that was conveyed. Again, I talked about this stuff for like an hour in that video. For the purposes of this video, we're not gonna go into the full discussion. I'm just gonna give you guys the little bits of the highlights, like I said, of the thing. But if you guys want to click the join button and become a mob lieutenant or higher, you guys will have instant access to that in the members only section in the family meetings playlist. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in now to 5 do's or do nots of table hopping magic. All right, so the first thing I'd like to talk about is who to perform for and who not to perform for. Before we can discuss knowing who to perform for or not, I'd like to kind of talk about your approach to the table a little bit. There's tons of different ways to approach a table. I'm going to talk about the 2 most common ways that I usually see. One of those ways is the magician walks up to the table and does something flashy, some kind of flashy, eye-catching opener, like a fire wallet, or producing a rose with flash paper, or making a deck of cards appear, or something, right? Some kind of visual piece of magic that makes the people go, oh my goodness, you're a magician. And you go, yeah, my name is Michael, I'm a magician. You guys want to see some more magic? And then you start performing for them, right? That's one way. The other way, and this is more my approach, is I walk up to a table. I say, hello everyone, how's everyone doing this evening? Everything tasting good so far? Are we having a fun night out? I kind of talk to them for a second. Usually they assume, oh, okay, this guy works for the restaurant, right? And then I say, my name is Michael. I'm actually the restaurant name's magician, and I was wondering, would you guys like to see some magic this evening right here at your table? And then I get permission from them, and then I launch into my magic act, right? In either case, I always recommend asking for permission. You should never go to a table and just, all right, go ahead and pick out a card. Here's a sponge ball, hold this. Hey, can you hold out your hand and grab this coin? And start just performing magic for them, right? You should always ask for permission to be at their table. Now that we've discussed that, let's back up real quick and let's talk about who to perform for and who not to perform for, right? The people that you should perform for are people that look like they're having fun, people that are maybe bored, that are just on their phone, people that are looking like they're kind of like looking all around and it's kind of awkward silence. Maybe they're not quite sure. Maybe it's like a first date and they're like not really quite sure what to say or what to talk about, and you can see things are kind of getting awkward. You can go in there and you could be that icebreaker for them. You could be the person that keeps them entertained while they're waiting for their food to come out, right? You should never be performing for the guests while they're eating. You should walk up to the table after the server has taken their order and before their meal has arrived. If they're already eating, I will usually let them finish, and then when they're done eating and they're waiting for their check, I might come back to the table and do a quick little something for them. But again, you don't want to keep them at the table if they've already paid their tab. You don't want them to sit at the table. You want them to leave so that the restaurant can seat more people, right? So usually what I'll do is I'll look and see who looks approachable. I'll walk up, I'll do my intro, and then I'll leap right into the magic. Now, I'm also scanning the restaurant for people who should not be performing for. Again, people that are already chowing down on their food, right? Probably not going to want to approach them. People that look like they're having a very deep conversation, Maybe people that are having some sort of business meeting, or people that are having an argument. Don't want to get in the middle of that, right? These are usually people that I try to avoid when it comes to approaching them as a magician. Now, let's just say you've scoped it out and you're pretty sure, okay, this will be a good group of people to go perform for. So you go to the table and you do your thing, and my name is Michael, I'm the magician. You're usually going to get one of 3 responses. You're going to get an enthusiastic yes, which is like, oh yeah, I'd love to see some magic. You're going to get an enthusiastic no, which is like, no, you know, we're okay. Like maybe we're trying to catch up. I haven't seen these guys in a really long time. You know, we're having a serious discussion or whatever. Or the third one is you might get a wishy-washy no. The wishy-washy no is usually like, I don't know, you guys want to see something? And they're like not quite sure, right? Usually the wishy-washy no is a result of them not knowing what's going to happen. They might think, oh, I don't really want to have to pay for this, or, you know, I don't know if the other people at the table want to see this or not, and maybe everyone's kind of being polite. Usually I won't push the issue. I'll just say one more time, just so you guys know, it's completely free. You don't have to pay me anything. My job is to just come and entertain you while you wait for your food. Would you like some free entertainment? And at that point, if they say no, I leave. I don't argue with them. I don't try to convince them what they're missing out on. I don't try to make fun of them or none of that stuff, right? I just, all right, if you guys decide that you changed your mind later on and you see me walking around, just flag me down and I'll show you a quick trick before you guys leave tonight. And then I go to the next table and that's it. Don't try to perform for a group that really doesn't want you to be performing for them. You could win them over in the long run, but you don't want to risk irritating them and then they call the manager over. Oh, that magician was very pushy. He made us watch his magic show and we didn't want to, or whatever, right? Most of what I'm talking about is when you're in a restaurant situation. Now, if you're in a formal situation, it could be a little bit more tricky, especially depending on how the service operation is. If they drop all their food at once, or if it's buffet style, you may or may not have to be performing for guests that do already have food on the table and may or may not already be eating. So let's talk about that now. All right, the next point is you guys want to understand the operation of the venue that you're performing in. So if it's a restaurant situation, again, you want to check in with your staff. You want to ask them some questions if you're not quite sure how their operation goes. When are they going to come to the table? How many servers are there? How their tables are set up? All of this stuff, right? You want to definitely be in communication with your staff, because the last thing that you want to do is be bumping elbows with your servers and things while you're trying to perform, because their job is a lot more important than yours. Their job is to make sure food is coming out on time, being dropped at the right time to the right tables. And you can't be like performing and then be like, oh, 1 minute, I'm almost done. Like, no, once the food comes, right? And that's it. Usually I'll finish up whatever like last piece that I'm doing. I'm not gonna extend it because now they're gonna try to start eating, right? I'll try to tie up one like little last piece that I'm doing or something and then let them enjoy their meal and you move on to the next table. For example, when I first started performing at the restaurant gig that I'm currently doing, which happens to be an Irish pub, there is a full bar there. There's 2 or 3 bartenders working behind the bar, like serving drinks to a ton of different people. You have people running around the restaurant with trays, bringing out drinks, bringing out food, all of this stuff. The first thing that I did was I talked to the head bartender and I said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you show me the places that if I was to, for example, come behind the bar to start performing magic, can you show me the best places for me to set up shop so that I'm not in your way? Can you show me some red flags to look out for where it's like, you know what, it's not really a good idea for me to be back there right now, right? Can you show me where the servers are going to be coming in and out so I know that I'm not supposed to be standing there when I'm performing? All of these things, you want to ask these questions, right? Now with the restaurant operation, it's usually pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm sure you've eaten at a restaurant before. You already know how restaurants operate, right? The server's gonna come, they're gonna take your order, they're gonna bring you your drinks, and they're gonna take your food order. Then they're gonna drop your appetizers, and they're gonna drop your main course, and then they're gonna periodically check on you to make sure that everything is tasting good and that your drinks are refilled and all that. Then they come with the check. then they bring back your credit card, and then you guys leave, right? That's typically how a restaurant operates. Now, what about formal dining situations that are not in a restaurant type thing, right? Because when you go to a restaurant, you order your food, they bring the food. It's the same pretty much everywhere that you go, right? For banquet situations, there's usually a couple of different ways that they do it. They'll either do buffet style, right? Where everyone goes and they get their own food, and then they come and they sit down at their own table and then they eat. And it's kind of chaotic because everyone's just serving themselves whenever they want to and all of that stuff. Or they will usually do something called course meal, right? Course meal is very interesting because the way that that goes is the server doesn't just come and like take your order, right? The way that it works is the entire room gets their entire appetizers all at the same time. So like a bunch of servers will just like come out of the walls, drop all of the salads and soups at the same time. Everyone's gonna eat their salads and soups. Then they all come and they take the salads and soup plates away. And then they drop the first course all at the same time. All the tables, they get the first course dropped. Then the servers come and they take that. And then they come and drop the second course, right? And then they take that. And then they come and drop the dessert, right? So it's very different than like a restaurant situation. And oftentimes when you're doing a formal close-up situation in a banquet or like a wedding reception, almost 100% of the time you're gonna be performing with guests that have food on the table, right? So there is kind of no getting around that whole not performing while they're eating, because you're gonna have to perform while they eat, which brings me to my next point. All right, so this probably goes without saying, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it anyway. You are not gonna want to hover over the spectator's food, right? You're not gonna want to lean far over and have your tie fall right into their spaghetti, or you're not gonna want to pick up things on the table and move them so that you could set up your cups and balls routine right on their table. You're not going to want to do your card to shoe, where you take off your dirty ass shoe and you dig your hand deep into your stinky, nasty, sweaty toe fungusy inside of your sweaty ass boot and pull that card out over their plate of food, right? You're not gonna wanna do this stuff. And I know you're probably screaming at the screen right now, because I had some of those people screaming at the screen during the live session. Really, seriously, Michael, you're having to tell people not to do this stuff? You would be surprised, right? Those are the more obvious ones. Now there's less obvious ones, right? Like card to mouth. I mean, if you're gonna do like a full-on folded up card in your mouth and you're like, bleh, and you're spitting the card out and you're unfolding it and you're handing it to them and your spit's dripping off the card and going into their plate of food, that's obvious, right? It's a little bit more of a gray area in my opinion if you're doing the card to mouth where like the corner of the card is in your mouth. Like the one where they're looking at the deck and then they look up and they see the card sticking out of your mouth. I do that one in my restaurant situation because I don't stick the card in my mouth. I'm kind of pinching it right here, right? It's not even really my lip. I don't even know what you call this. It's like this part. It kind of just gets pinched right by like where my cheek and my lip come together, right? Where the dimple is, right here. Yeah, like the dimple of the lip. I don't know what that's called. But I'll pinch the card in there, right? And then I'm not taking the card out of my mouth and having them like do a bunch of stuff with it, right? It just goes in real quick. I just pinch it right there and then it comes out. I think that that's okay. Some people might disagree with that take. Some people might say cut that out completely. And if that's the case and you don't want to do that, another thing you could do is the card on the forehead or the card under the hat. If you're wearing a cap, you could stick it under the hat right here. Or card to top pocket. Instead, it gets the same reaction. It's the same kind of thing. Instead of putting it in your mouth, you just stick it in your top pocket real quick in your coat. There's ways around that, right? But you want to be mindful of the fact that people are eating. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to be, imagine this. Imagine you're sat at a table, you're ready to enjoy your meal, and some random ass stranger comes, sits there, reaches over your plate of food, picks up your plate, moves it, grabs your glass, moves that, reaches over to get like the breadsticks, grabs that, breaks the breadsticks, starts eating it, double dips into the ranch dressing, all of this stuff, right? Imagine all of that stuff That's what you're doing as the magician when you come and you're hovering over their food. So you just want to be very mindful of that stuff, right? Anytime you need to move a plate or move a glass or something, I will always announce what I want to happen and I will let them do it. So I'll say something like, is it okay if we move this wine glass? I know I'm clumsy, I don't want to knock it over, right? But I don't pick up the wine glass and move it myself. I point to the wine glass, I gesture with my hand. Sometimes I'll touch it with the tips of my fingers at the bottom, right? Not at the top where they're supposed to be drinking from it. But I'll just kind of gently nudge it at the bottom. I'll say, would you mind to go ahead and move this wine glass for me? I don't want to knock it over. And let them move it. Same if the plate of food is in the way. Would you mind to move your plate over just a little bit? I'm going to be setting things right down here on the table, right? Always ask for permission. Don't just start grabbing and moving things. Don't hover over their food. Make sure that you're not sweating into their food. Make sure you're not drooling into their food. Make sure that your tie isn't falling into their food. I highly recommend getting one of those little tie clip things so that if you do have to reach over far, you're not letting your tie drop into their plate of food and all that stuff. All right, so that brings me to another point, and that is be mindful who you're performing for. I already discussed a little bit earlier, you don't want to force people to watch your magic show, right? So let's just say you're going up to a group and you've asked them already if they want to see a magic show and they're like, and they don't know. Again, I'll usually say something along the lines of, just so you know, it's a free show. They're paying me to be here at the restaurant tonight. All you guys have to do is just sit back and enjoy while you wait for your food to come up. And if they say no, you just move on to the next group. That's totally fine, right? The other thing that you want to do is be mindful of who the guests are. There are a lot of guests that are very self-conscious about the fact that there's food around and that they're eating, right? So for example, I'll use tonight as an example. I just actually did my restaurant gig this evening and it went very well. Thank you for asking. And I was doing sponge balls. And I ran into a situation where I wanted to do the sponge ball from one hand to the spectator's hand, and the spectator had sort of like shrimp fingers, right? Like they were like sucking shrimps down, and they had like greasy, like kind of juicy fingers, and they were super embarrassed. Like their hands were super dirty, right? And I'm all about owning it. I was just straight up like, you know what? If you're feeling like your hands are dirty, you don't have to touch it, but I don't care. You know, here, you can grab this if you want to. It doesn't bother me. Don't worry, I wash them after every show. And that is true. You should be washing your props, especially when you're performing for guests to handle food. She ended up being okay, and she was like, I don't want to, but thank you so much. But she was fine. And I just moved on to the next person. But that's a good lesson to remember. You want to be self-conscious or subconscious, is that the word I'm looking for? You want to be aware of the guests and the fact that some guests are not as comfortable touching you or touching different objects that you're handing them while they have food in front of them, especially after they've already started eating. All right, the last one, and this is probably the most important one, is be safe. I highly recommend you do not do fire wallet. If you're doing walk around table to table magic, I don't recommend that you do flash paper. I don't recommend that you do tricks that involve the spectator handling fire or handling something sharp or handling something that could make them sick. Use your best judgment. If you're gonna do your fire wallet or your flash paper or you're gonna do razor blade swallows or whatever the fuck you're doing at the restaurant. Don't do razor blade swallows at the restaurant, by the way. Whatever it is that you're gonna do, I highly recommend that you have thoroughly trained yourself on this. If this is like your first time using a fire wallet, don't go into a working situation using it. Get comfortable using it first. I have firsthand seen and been involved with venues that have said, you know what, we're not going to do magicians anymore because a spectator got burned and they're threatening to sue now. And so no more magic. And it's like, really, how did they get burned? You did your fire wallet right in their face and their hair caught on fire. I don't know, right? But be very, very careful. If you're going to do fire effects, don't do them within feet of the spectator's face. You want to take a step back from the table. Watch your surroundings to make sure a server isn't about to walk by or another guest is walking behind you. Do the thing and then put it away and make sure it's fully extinguished before you go to put it away or set it on the table or whatever it is you're going to do with it, right? Make sure that you're being safe. Take the customer's safety into first priority. And if you have not already done so, I highly recommend that you take out an insurance policy that covers all of the different things that you're going to be doing. If you're going to have fire in your act, make sure you have an insurance policy that covers that. If you're going to be doing magic in your act that, you know, I don't know, maybe you're going to do ring to wine stem or something and you're worried maybe you might spill wine on the spectator, make sure that you have that stuff covered in your insurance policy. I have a basic liability insurance policy. I don't have any extra riders or anything for fire because I don't really do fire in my restaurant work, but I have an insurance policy that covers me for up to $1 million in damages just in the offset that an accident happens. I knocked that glass of red wine over on her mink coat and it's like a $20,000 fur coat and I just ruined her coat. You know what, miss? I'm insured. Don't worry, I'll go ahead and have you compensated for that fur coat. And I don't have to worry about digging deep into my wallet for 20 grand to pay for her coat, right? So I highly recommend that you carry liability insurance. Just be safe, keep the guests safe, keep you safe. Don't burn the restaurant down. I hope that this was some fun and helpful information for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please click the subscribe button. Don't forget to ring the bell so that you'll stay notified every time I upload a new video. And if you guys want to take your magic seriously, I highly recommend that you join the mob. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to all my videos before they premiere, so you don't have to wait. For $5 a month, you'll get access to all of my tutorials, which at the time of making this video is over 65 full tutorials in the tutorials playlist. For $20 a month, you can become a lieutenant and join the family meetings. And for $50 or $100 a month, you can become a mob underboss or a boss. You'll get direct one-on-one access with me, where I can help you out with your magic act. I can help you take your magic to the next level. If you wanted to become a working professional, we could set up your working professional website and all of that stuff. Or if you just want to pick my brain about anything so that you can better your knowledge and understanding of magic in general, you can have these one-on-one sessions with me. Anyway, my name is Michael O'Brien. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.